Good morning. Welcome to Real Estate Radio Denver. I'm your host, Tom Souther. Thank you so much for joining us and joining us every Saturday. We are here from 9 to 10 a.m. right here on News Talk 710 KNUS. This week, let me start off with, I want to throw out our off-air number, and I want to just remind you that we are here to help rebuild this marketplace, real estate marketplace in the Denver area. We do that every week by giving you some great information, telling you the truth about what's going on in this market, not the national BS that you hear that sometimes just doesn't apply. We're a different market than most places, although I think quite a few communities around the country are having a little inventory shortage like we are, but we're going to get to that later. So anyway, I want to encourage you, please communicate with the show. You can reach us off air and leave me a message. You can text. You can send me an email. That off air number, 720-515-1818, 720-515-1818. Also, you can always email to Tom at realestateradio.denver.com. And I'd love to help you, whether that's a real estate need. I've got just such a great connections with real estate agents throughout the community that I'd love to put you in touch with. If you're thinking about buying, selling, maybe you want to find out what your home is worth to make that decision. There's so many ways we can help you. Maybe you need to do a little refi. Maybe you're thinking, I'm renting and it's time to make that move. I usually start the show with that rant, and I'm gonna do that again because I like that rant about when is the right time to buy, and it's today. Now, rules are going to change after the first of the year. I'm a little worried about that. Not in a huge way, but just a little concerned. I think rates are going to go up next year. Prices are going up. So if you weigh all those things together, now is the time. So get into the market. Find out. I encourage you, if you're renting, take a look. We've done many a show on how easy it is to get into that first home. That it doesn't take a lot of down money, and I'd love to help you with that. As you know, I'm a I'm a mortgage professional with Citywide Home Loans, and would love to help you with that project, or at least give you the correct information so that you can make an intelligent decision. So anyway, we're going to move on with the show. I've got a great group today. I have a group of real estate agents that you are just going to fall in love with. Their energy is off the chart. The job they do for their customers is fantastic. I'm going to introduce them in a minute. But first, I want to introduce my one of my good show partners. I have Ryan Mathisen here with Colorado Insurance.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
You are very welcome. And we are going to start this process with you. We haven't done this before, so we're going to add a little segment into our show that's going to be at least every other week. We're going to call that Cover Your Assets, and Ryan's going to come in and give us a little pointer on your insurance or some way to make sure you're covered in life. So, Ryan, hit it.
Yep, absolutely. And really, Tom, I just want to be a resource for the show to be able to educate our listeners on kind of the ins and outs of insurance, things that maybe their agent is not telling them, hasn't told them, or they just haven't really looked into. We see a lot of people don't really know what they have on their policies, most specifically home policies. And that's what I'm here for. So today I kind of wanted to touch on a subject that's really always changing in the marketplace. We see a lot of variation between companies, and that's your home deductible. The deductible is really your out-of-pocket expense when you put in a claim. That's your shared risk with the insurance company. Lately, I've been seeing a lot of higher deductibles. The insurance company is expecting the client to share more of the risk. And the problem is they're not explaining it to their clients. So I want to come here today and kind of share what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of percentage deductibles. And what a percentage deductible means is it's a percentage of your dwelling coverage. We're all used to the $500 and $1,000 deductibles. That's pretty standard. What some insurance companies are going towards now and making it mandatory is a 1%, even a 2% deductible.
Yeah, I've seen them up to 2%.
And that is crazy. Now, what that is, let's take an example. Let's take a $500,000 dwelling coverage policy. If you have a 1% deductible on that policy, your deductible is $5,000. And that's across the board. Wind, hail, fire, water. We're definitely coming into the freezing pipe season, so that deductible would apply to that as well. And it's really, like I said, something that the agents are not talking to their clients about, and it's something that needs to be addressed up front so the client is fully aware. There's nothing worse than having to put in a claim and finding out, oh my gosh, I have a 0.5% deductible on a $500,000 dwelling coverage policy, and my deductible is $2,500. So we're seeing a lot of people that just they're not aware. And when it comes time to put in a claim, that's what they're seeing.
So what would be your advice to a listener who is looking at their policy, not knowing what they have? What do they do?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, call me. I would love to take a look at your policy and run down kind of, the specifics of your policy, most specifically that deductible, and I can educate you on really what that deductible means to you. Or talk to your agent. Make sure that you're fully aware of what they're giving you and why they're giving it to you. We see so many clients that just look at the bottom line price and they say, yep, we're good to go. And then a claim comes in and they backtrack fully unaware of what they really bought.
So that really inexpensive policy premium maybe wasn't in your best interest.
Maybe. And it just because you have an inexpensive policy doesn't mean it's not a good policy.
Sure.
Like I always say, it's finding the right fit of a company for the right client. Every company is looking for a specific niche of client. That's why it's most important to shop around, find different rates, and see really what fits best for you. What company really fits best for you? All
right, Ryan, let's tell me what is the best way to get a hold of you if I needed to have an insurance analysis.
Sure.
I don't know what my deductibles are. I need to send you my paperwork. Sure. You go through that process. How do they get a hold of you?
So you can call me directly at my office, which is in Greenwood Village. That's 720-266-5302. You can, of course, email me your policy. I would love to take a look. I'll give you a non-biased opinion of what it looks like and where I would make changes. That is Ryan.Mathisen, Mathisen, at BuyColoradoInsurance.com.
Give me that phone number one more time.
720-266-5302.
That's your Cover Your Assets segment for this week. You're listening to Real Estate Radio Denver here on News Talk 710 KNUS. We're going to be right back. You don't want to miss a minute. We're going to tell you why you should use a great buyer's agent. And we are going to add another guest. We've got Tom Gysin from Homestead Title as well. Don't miss a minute. Come right back. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Denver. I'm your host, Tom Souther, and we are starting a new conversation for you. And you're going to love these guys and gal.
Thank you.
We have with us from Leprino Home, I have Matt Leprino, who is the owner broker of record. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning.
And we have Mollie Mckennie as well. Mollie's a couple years in the biz.
Yep.
And Matt, you're 10 plus?
Approximately 10. Yes.
We won't age ourselves. But I love, and I keep mentioning this, I love these guys' energy in the business. The real estate business is such a personal transaction for everyone. Mm-hmm. Being able to really connect with your agent and have them be as excited or more excited about that transaction than you are is just world class. And that's what you want in an agent. Mm-hmm. So, Matt, let's start the ball tell us a little bit about Leprino Home.
Sure.
You've started this and reinvented
we just celebrated
it a little bit.
5 years in business last month. We're getting ready to move into a new space. God willing, any day now when the city allows us to get those final permits. But started it 5 years ago, starting to slowly grow, and it's been a really fun ride. It's been a lot of fun to start this process from the ground up and really start getting into our own little niche and making our own little our name in the market.
Yeah, and you mentioned the name, and it's interesting. It's Leprino Home versus Leprino Homes. Right. Tell us a story about that.
Well, it's funny. I'd mentioned that to you earlier. My mom still would prefer it was Homes, but my sort of theory on the home is everybody can relate to the word home. I don't think there's anybody who can't. And, homes I felt was a little bit more stagnant, a little bit more stale, a little bit more corporate. And, I like you had mentioned, real estate is very personal. Every transaction is very personal. And if you can relate to those who are helping you, through the process, and you can relate to the word home, and it kind of conjures up that image of what every one of us thinks about the word home, all the better.
Let me bring in my third guest, and I've got another comment on that. I have with me also Tom Gysin, another one of my show partners. Tom is the owner of Homestead Title, owner and partner. Is that the right term?
That is the right term.
Welcome back.
Yeah, nice to be back.
Tom's a regular guest and regular contributor, and he always has some great insight to throw into this. What I wanted to throw in to me when I hear Leprino Home versus Leprino Homes is it's just it's a singular transaction that you're working on. Sure. You're not working on homes.
That's just how it
for
should
your
always
customer.
feel.
You're working on their home, and I think that's fantastic that you've clearly identified that in your name as well as your practice.
Sure.
So I'll just throw that in right there. Right. So let's move on to topic number one, unless you've got more to add about background and
we'll
history.
head on to your first topic.
All
That's
right.
great.
So we were having a great conversation, a little pre-show about that buyer's agent representing a buyer in a transaction. And what that value is, because I think there's a lot of confusion in the marketplace about who pays and, why do I need one? Because it's going to cost me money as a buyer to use you guys. And that is so far off in the in what reality is. So tell us a little bit of your thoughts there about that value of a representing that buyer.
Well, I think I'll let Mollie kind of spearhead that one a little bit. But
Sure.
I mean, we were having a conversation last week that, those of us in the industry a little bit forget that some buyers entering the market are not aware that they do not have to pay for a buyer's agent.
Right. And that's how the conversations began, is that we were talking about the fact that, even sitting at an open house, people will come in and say, boy, I'd really love to work with you, but I don't think I can afford you. And it's one of those things that's not the way it works. I mean, it's probably one of the best deals going, as you're not paying a thing, but we are representing you. We are your advocate. We are the person doing all the legwork. We are the person that's going to make your life a lot simpler in finding a home in a competitive market. And it's really, to Matt and I, as we were saying, it's kind of a no-brainer. That our commission, the way it's set up is when someone lists their home, they agree with the listing broker that they're going to pay anywhere from, a lot of times it's from 4 to 6% traditionally. And part of that commission,
seeing as high as 8 now.
I've seen it. Yeah, I have seen that. But normally it's around 2.83% that is co-op, and that goes to the person who brings the buyer. And so really, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense to try to represent yourself, particularly in this market where things are changing so quickly, and it's such a low inventory situation that it really behooves you to take advantage of using a seasoned professional and somebody who knows the market and knows what they're doing and will have your back. So
and knows how to negotiate on your behalf.
That's a key piece. Key piece.
And that's such a key thing, Mollie, that you bring up, that money's going to get spent.
Right.
It's just a matter of who is it going to go to in the transaction. So to have an independent voice in that transaction with a buyer's agent is beyond value, because the sellers are going to pay that money to somebody. They're
Well,
gonna,
talk about that.
Yeah.
Talk about that. So I know what you mean, but why don't you explain it?
Well, and I think you hit this, but go ahead, Mollie. You can probably put this out better than I can. When that seller signs his real estate contract,
right,
and agrees to pay 5%, 6%, whatever their amount is.
It's going. And whether it goes to, I think it used to be called double dipping, where if in fact say you call up off the sign and say, hey, Joe Blow, I would like to make, I'd like to make an offer on your property on Elm.
We can't say Joe Blow on there.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
He's one of my best friends. But
I like to play with my guest minds a little bit. So go ahead.
But anyway, regardless, so what happens if that person, if he's working with both you as the buyer and his original client, the seller, he then becomes he or she becomes a transaction broker, and therefore is only representing. Should the seller allow it? Right.
Sometimes they don't,
and sometimes they don't. But then, really, what their obligation is to represent the transaction rather the seller or the buyer. So you really don't have that. You're not being represented
you don't have an advocate.
Exactly. And that's the thing.
If you call the listing agent and you want them to represent you as well. And you know what? There are certain circumstances that are a slam dunk. They're real easy. And sometimes people don't, you have a seller who knows what they're doing. They've done it 25 times. They don't care if you're representing both sides.
Right.
But, for a buyer who's interested in really having that advocate,
Yeah, well, Matt, I believe that in people and that in general, if you were were in a situation where you were in a transaction agreement and the listing agent was representing you as well. I want to believe that person is going to look out for your best interests as well as the sellers. My reality is I don't believe that happens very often, and that you really need to have some independent representation in that transaction, because we all see that you have inspection issues, you have appraisal issues, you have all of these things that are negotiation points once that contract is signed. And if you're not represented, it's not a pretty picture sometimes.
No, it's absolutely not.
What is your thought on that? I was curious. I mean,
on transaction brokership,
do you think that's it's obviously a very viable and often used way, right? But I tend to look at those always and go, yeah, it's interesting. I just lost my representation.
Well, there's a lot of listing brokers who take an open house, for example, will hold an open house because they really want to capture that buyer. They really would like to double in the deal. And, I think if you've got full transparency and you're letting your seller know that that's, a direction you're trying to go and you want to go, and they're okay with it, you disclose that to any potential buyer, I don't see any problem with it. Now, personally, I shy away from them. I think I'm in the business of relationships, and I like to represent buyers. I like to represent sellers. I like to have that fiduciary responsibility with my client. And you lose a lot of the ability to do that, to make a really good relationship with the client.
Because now you're simply representing the transaction, right?
You're more often than not, I try to have as very little verbal communication as I can in a transaction brokership, because you've got to make sure you document absolutely everything. So it's email, it's text, it's, all of those items. And it just presents a few more challenges than I think it's worth to be able to double in the commission.
So on a scenario like that, if you found a buyer at an open house and you came to me as the seller and said, hey, I have a buyer, I'd like to switch our representation from seller representative to transaction, and I say no.
Sure.
What happens?
Well, you've already got the relationship with them, so you don't really have a choice. However, when you do a listing agreement,
who doesn't have a choice?
You don't, as the broker, have the choice, unless that's already agreed to in writing with the listing agreement.
So if I say no as the seller, then you stay as representing me as the seller, and the buyer is unrepresented?
They can be, but you know what? Exactly like we're talking about with an advocate, I would much rather pass them on to somebody else and say, look, I'm not going to be able to represent you, but I know somebody fantastic who can take care of you. They can be unrepresented, but again, why? Right. Why? The money's going to be spent one way or the other.
Yeah, and that's a good question. So even if I, as a seller, said no, does the listing agent get that full commission as well? If I agreed at a 6% commission, or do they really need to bring in another person? Or I just was curious how that works. I don't know how that works.
I think that's one of those gray areas that then you start. Exactly. Where's the legal department? Well, I think that's when you kind of have to sit down and say, this is what our listing agreement said. You allowed me to represent you as a transaction broker. Now that you're not going to, that's fine. And now again, it's a little bit of a legal gray area.
I don't think it happens a lot. I was curious.
You're representing the seller. Why you want to keep them happy?
Yeah. Definitely.
You want to take care of them as best as you possibly can. So
so speaking, I saw in your notes a little bit about open houses.
Sure.
Is that for the seller or is that for the broker?
Well, that's theoretically for the seller. But Mollie, you want to take that one?
Well, to be completely, it's a trade secret, probably. I mean, people honestly, most of the times when you walk into an open house, it is a broker trying to grab leads, because these are people that are interested in houses.
In real estate.
Right,
Absolutely.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. And that's the other little thing I'd like to say about open houses. Don't feel bad about going into them. It's an open house.
Yeah.
We want you to come in.
We
come
do.
in. Absolutely.
We're going to eat all the cookies ourselves in the next 2 hours.
Drink all the punch. Yeah. But it's one of those things where people come in and feel like they have to explain, like, oh, I'm just a neighbor. Oh, I'm just curious. It's, it's okay. Come in. I'm not going to make you sign anything. Just come in and take a look.
Those first few steps are always a little delicate.
Really, it is. And they always, they're so just sheepish, and I'm not going to bite, really. And so that's one of the things. Come to open houses. We like it. So
are they for? But back, your question, are they for either one? The percentage of of open houses that lead to a buyer by you holding the open house. Maybe not as high. I feel like in our day and time with technology today, any buyer who's walking into an open house is one of a few people. They're a neighbor who wants to check it out. They want to see what that remodel they saw their neighbor doing last year was. They want to check out the neighborhood, but they've probably already been investigating it online for 6 months and probably have an idea who they're going to work with and who their broker is.
Yeah,
and
that's
all
a
that.
good
And
point.
Yeah.
they will. I mean, that's a very common thing.
The days of just sort of driving around to see what's for sale is sitting in your
long gone.
pajamas.
Yeah,
and,
you've been sitting, on,
surfing
you've
the
been
net,
sitting on
right?
your phone for the last 6 months.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, you've been listening to Real Estate Radio Denver here on News Talk 710 KNUS. I have with me Matt Leprino, broker-owner of Leprino Home, and Mollie Mckennie, agent with Leprino Home as well, and Tom Gysin, owner, partner. I'm missing the right term there.
No, you got
Homestead
it.
title.
Owner.
And representative extraordinaire. I want to give you our off-air phone number, 720-515-1818, 720-515-1818. Send me a text or drop us a call. I would love to put you together with Matt and or Mollie and get you that quality experience in your real estate transaction. That's whether you're buying, listing, it doesn't matter. Maybe you just want to find out what your home is worth. Give us a call. We're going to be right back with a lot more. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Denver. I'm your host, Tom Souther, and I have with me three just great guests today, and we're talking about real estate, and we're talking about how to be successful. We're talking about, we're trying to give you a little more information about why is it so important to have just a really high quality buyer agent, a person representing you in that transaction. And it's so important to be successful in this really competitive real estate market we have here in Denver. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit too. So let's reintroduce. I have with me Matt Leprino, who is the broker owner of Leprino Home. No S.
Singular.
Yep.
Yes.
Welcome back, Matt.
Thank you.
And I also have Mollie Mckennie, who is an agent with Matt at Leprino Home. And also Tom Gysin, the owner-founder, that's the word I was looking for, of Homestead Title, a local success story. They've been in business about 4 years and started at the very worst time and you could possibly imagine in the real estate business here in Denver. And you guys are up to...
we have four branches now.
Yeah. Do you have I'm going to put you on the spot here with a Homestead Title update. Do you have anything new and exciting going on that we need to know about? You can say
nothing
no.
really. You know what? No, things are going really well, and just adapt into the market. Market's a little bit different than it was a few months ago with the drop in refinances. But honestly, Tom, we've seen a little pickup in that as well. I think
I have too, just in the last month.
Seems like rates
so I have a few more going your way.
Rates have settled down a little bit, and ironically, I have just to get off topic real quick, but I have a LIBOR loan, right, which is based off of the London Interbank. So
it's a variable rate arm loan that has been at the world's lowest rates over the last 5 years.
Yeah, it dropped again last month.
Nice.
It's crazy.
Good for you.
Anyway,
and you're paying that thing off fast, so it's a good loan for you.
I'm trying.
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to be a fixed rate mortgage advocate right at the moment, but everybody's situation is different, and ARMs, just adjustable rate mortgages, are just an interesting tool for the right person.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really important to look at that person's situation, just like Ryan was saying on the insurance side.
Every deal's different.
Every deal is different, so you just never know.
Anyway, we digress. So I want to get back to Matt Leprino and Mollie Mckennie with Leprino Home. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about the relationship. We were filling people in on that relationship with a person representing them in a real estate transaction. And we were talking on break a little bit about the chances of success in our marketplace, about how competitive it is. And in that situation, does somebody have a fair shot in that transaction not being represented? I know Mollie's over here biting her lip on this. And
it's such inventory, as we all know, has been so low in this market. And it has been, I think...
And when we say inventory, we mean number of homes on the market available to buy.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I think that people have this impression that they can hop online, and we have wonderful resources on the internet in regards to real estate.
Yeah.
However, a lot of times, as Matt and I have discussed, it's not always completely accurate. It's not what the most up-to-date information in the MLS is, which is the multi-list, which is what we use as our one of our most used tools. And, one example that I had some clients that were looking up in the Willow Springs area, out in Morrison, and we had driven around and I kind of showed them what was available, and they were kind of thinking, this might be a year before we can look. But if the right thing came along, let me know. Well, it was a Saturday night and I checked on MLS and this listing just came on, and the last thing I wanted to do was
have a conversation with a customer
all
on
day,
Saturday night.
but I thought, oh man, this is exactly what they want. And we were the first ones through, and it was one of those deals where, they got it, and it was only because they had somebody that was on it and looking for them and was willing to do the work. And they're incredibly happy. They love the place, and it made me feel good because it was that's my job. And I think that's a great reason to use have a great buyer broker.
Well, I mean, and that is a bit of a challenge too. Once a property hits the MLS, there is X many thousands of us in town who have that access to it right away. And it really, you a little bit do in a market like this.
Yeah.
You have to be refreshing it every 3 hours when you have that client that is looking for something. And you have your Zillows and your Trulias and those items that are out there that I think a good portion of buyers are, doing the research 6 months before they even call us, looking at what's out there. And, regrettably, those just aren't as updated as our MLS system. I mean, it can take 2 or 3 days before a property is in there. And gosh, in a market like this, that house is, if it's priced well and it's in a good neighborhood, it's gone.
So do you get that a lot where somebody says, I want to see this house, and you're like,
almost every client that we work with nowadays will say, hey, how about this one? What, I'd really like to add this to the list of what we're looking on Saturday. And, you look it up, and I mean, I've had instances where the property has sold 6 months ago and is still showing available. And I mean, I've also had those instances where a client will call you slightly upset, saying, this is exactly the property I want, exactly the neighborhood I want, and the price I want. This even has a nicer kitchen than I told you, that it wants. And you have to tell them that, it went under contract before we even started working together.
Right.
So
you get that, why didn't you show me this? Because it's sold.
Well, and it's a challenge. But you know what? On the other side, sometimes they are available right away, and sometimes they do. I haven't really quite figured out what the science.
Well, Mollie, you have the ability too, just to set a search parameter,
right? Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. You can even have alerts. I mean, if you're on it, and that's the thing. It really having somebody who's on it. And again, I can't reiterate enough. You're not paying for this service. I mean, it's such a critical piece that somebody that really is looking for exactly what you want. And the other thing too that Matt and I discussed, that the running around and the previewing and the checking out all of the properties so that you don't have to run through 25 houses. We know you've told us what you want, and we're looking at it, and then we can show you the best of the best that's going to fit your parameters.
Well, I think that's a great point. Is that still typically what a lot of agents do? Do they actually go and preview these houses?
I do.
I don't know if typical is the word I'd use, but it certainly should be.
Yeah, it should be.
It should be.
Even
it
if it's just from
we should all be
knowing the
doing
market,
it. Yeah,
it's really an important thing. I mean, it's just going out and seeing what's out there and knowing, if somebody says, "Hey, what about this house?" and you can say, "Yeah, I know it, and
I already went through it, and you won't like this."
Exactly. You're not gonna. You can't stand the. You don't.
I know you're working until 5 o'clock this afternoon. I can make it there in 30 minutes. I'll go check it out for you and take some photos for you.
Let you know if you need to see it right away.
Because when I watch HGTV, they always are previewing those houses.
Oh yeah. Right? Oh, absolutely. So, faux show.
No, that's good that you do that, because I would honestly, I asked that question, but I would say that that's probably atypical, right?
Well, that's good. I'd like to think that that's so.
Yeah.
So.
Well, in today's market, where we chat a little bit about the open house situation, but we've seen in really hot neighborhoods that open house is a pre-listing event.
Oh, a lot of times, yeah,
sure,
definitely.
So
and that is an interesting marketing tool.
It's that event for you to get out to see that property to see if your customers are going to love it enough to put in that offer in the first weekend.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So those have evolved into something a little more. But we talk about the big websites that people go to review, and my understanding is they're only as good as the agents who are putting in those listings and pulling them out. which because I don't believe they fall out automatically, do they?
Not well, and I don't think that's 100% the case with these. Unfortunately, and I can't speak with any authority on the side of these sites, but they're not live linking with the MLS.
Right,
There are several sites out there that do. With these ones, just because I place a property under contract in the MLS does not in any way, shape, or form mean that's going to translate to a lot of these sites. And
right, and pull it out of there so that you're not coming up in your
or
search.
Report it sold, or even putting it as active. Placing a new listing in there. It might take 2 or 3 days before any of these sites do pick it up.
Yeah, good point. Inventory. We talked a little bit about that. Where is inventory right now?
Inventory is that tricky time of year this year where it's been rather incredible all summer long how low it has been. You get into your back to school time and it certainly slows a little bit, and then of course the holidays. People are less willing to have their homes gone through, so it's gone down just a little bit. But I think
our inventory's gone up, right?
I think inventory's actually gone down quite a bit still, but I think there's also fewer buyers, so it's not as huge of a discrepancy right now.
It's kind of a balance.
Yeah.
You're listening to Real Estate Radio Denver. I have with me Matt Leprino and Mollie Mckennie from Leprino Home, and Tom Gysin, owner-founder of Homestead Title. And we're going to be right back. We're going to fill you in on a couple more great topics here on what's going on in the real estate market, fill you in a little bit more about inventory and how to be successful. Come on back. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Denver. We are helping you with what's the value of a fantastic person to represent you in a real estate transaction. It's such an emotional process for most people to buy or sell a home. And one of the things, and I'm going a little off the reservation here, but one of the things that I feel is so critical in that is to have a trusted advisor that can help you through that, take some of that emotion out of it, not be offended by offers, for example, or, really advise you on what that property is really about that you're looking at, or what your home is really, what its likelihood of selling on the marketplace. So anyway, we're going to go through that conversation a little bit. I have with me two just great experts, both from Leprino Home. I have Matt Leprino, who is the owner broker of that operation of Leprino Home, and I have Mollie Mckennie, who is just a couple years in the real estate business, but a little experience with fix and flips and all other things. So I think that's a timely kind of way to start. Let's talk about what's gone on in the real estate owned, what we call REOs, which is bank owned properties, and that flip market and fix and flips, because I think there's still a big, don't call it a myth, but perception out there by many people coming into the market that they can get a steal.
That's absolutely right.
And Matt, what do you think on that?
They do still exist.
Sure.
However, they are
hard to come by.
Much more far and few between than they were 2007, 2008, 2009, even a little bit into 10. With bank owns going down, with foreclosures going down,
short sales are off.
Short sales are off. Everybody's equity that they had leading up to 2008 has returned, and in most zip codes, most parts around town, have increased. So those folks that have kind of held on through those difficult years, don't need to short sale. They're not losing it to foreclosure.
Well, I'm seeing that in the refinance side of the business, that values are back. Yeah. And, that's helping with the, real estate that it's owned
double
by
digits
banks.
in some areas, especially in Denver County.
And they have enough value to refinance, or they have enough value to do a legitimate sale.
Sure.
And those deals are just a little harder. One of the other things we were talking about in the flip market, where, you would buy a home, do a little repair, fix up. Maybe it's a gut, maybe it's just a new paint and clean it up a little bit.
Right.
Those are getting sometimes out of the bank-owned market, getting picked up by institutional buyers, which is actually pretty good in your neighborhood, because they repair them, get them rehabbed, and back up to market standard pretty quickly.
Right.
But Mollie, I know you have some experience in that fix and flip marketplace.
Do, yeah.
And give us some insight there.
Well, I think that you hit on you're correct in that these things where you could just go in and pick up a house for 150, and put 20 into it and get in and out in a couple weeks. I mean, some of those people were really just churning them out.
Yeah.
In my view, it's changed a bit, and I've had to, in my own deals, I've had to look at things, go a lot of times a little bit higher end flips are places that are a really good place to look, where you're actually adding square footage. You're not just updating the place, but you're adding on to it. And they become bigger deals, that then it's you're picking something up for 500 instead of 300 or 150, and you're putting 150, 200 into it. And they take longer. So it's not as though,
and they're not for
and are riskier.
Exactly.
Yeah,
they're not for the weak of heart in those, because you're putting some serious
definitely in that.
skin in that
So
game.
maybe that's kind of weeding out a lot of some of it seems like flipping just is very secular and really does kind of I think that people hop in, like you said, Matt, HGTV, hello, everybody thinks that
it's sexy.
It does, yeah. And so
and you find out that the buying part and the fixing part are fairly easy. It's the whole flip thing that just creates the problem in that transaction.
Exactly. So it's one of those things that everybody wants to do it, and it has its moments where it's fun. But right now, it's just kind of hard to find them. It's but if you're on it and you're diligent about your search, they're out there. So.
Yeah, what I've seen in the marketplace, it seems people who really find those, they are so intimately involved in a neighborhood that they know exactly what's going on. Who is the
plus or minus $3 a square foot, what that property is going to go for remodeled.
Exactly.
Know who the elderly owners are in the neighborhood, that they can pick one up that's been lived in for a long time and needs that love and care, and they pick them up before they go on the market.
Exactly.
And work out some special deal. So it's very hard for that individual person to just look at the MLS listings and pick out a winner out of that crowd.
Yep,
but if you're looking for an expert to kind of help you with that and guide, either Matt or Mollie is a great choice. I'd love to put you together with them. Matt, throw out your phone number. We haven't done that yet on the show, and I'd like to give you that opportunity, although we'll continue to give out the show number as well.
Sure. Yeah, you can reach us at the office, 303-482-1299. We've got a general email box that kind of goes to all of us as well, and that's sold@leprinohome.com, LEPRINOHOME.com, and somebody will be able to help you out with either one of those, phone number or email.
Perfect. And let's change gears a little bit. You want to move over to the seller side of this transaction?
Let's do it.
Sure.
And
that's
maybe
fun
give a tip or two about how you should get involved in that process. I think number one may be find out what your house is worth.
Definitely.
Well, and I think I don't always think it's a terrible idea to get the opinion of one or two or three people.
For sure.
We'll do that in the office sometimes too. We'll sit down and kind of all do our own independent analysis and see where we come up with at a price. I think that's the best way to help the client with it. Sure. The for sale by owners and such that are out there, it's a little bit challenging. Maybe they don't have access to the latest comps that we do. They're not seeing the trends that we know in that particular neighborhood, and I think that's a tremendous amount of our value is way before the property even comes on a market. What we can do to price your property properly, and see what pre-marketing steps we can do to maximize what it's going to look like when it hits the market.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, let's throw out that as an add-on. I'm going to throw you under the bus here, but if you're interested in getting a valuation on your property, please, I want you to send us a quick message. Here's what you do. Off-air number 720-515-1818. Send me a text. Just put in the word value, 720-515-1818 in a text or email, either one, and I will put you together with Matt or Mollie. They will get a hold of you.
We'd be happy to do that. That's not an obligation. You're not hiring us. We don't have to sell your house for you. If you just want to know, maybe it comes in way higher than you thought and you want to sell it. Maybe it comes in way lower and we call you 3 years from now and we've got a buyer who wants your neighborhood.
Exactly.
The point of this show is to get information and get the truth to you. And as that service, take us up on that. Let us figure out what that home is probably worth in the marketplace. And then you can make an educated, intelligent decision on, do you move forward, do you not, or whatever. Maybe that's going to make you think, oh, well, I can do the remodel I wanted to do.
Or modify this, or paint this, or
Right.
change this landscaping just a hair, and you'll make, X amount more.
Well, I want to throw that in as well, because one of the pieces that we have not spoken about on this in introducing you guys is both of you have just a fantastic design background, and interior spaces are both of your passions.
Yep.
And you can help people with that. Not
Absolutely.
that you want that you're opening a design studio here,
No,
but
yeah.
these guys can help you.
But that's part of it.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's
We
part
love
of it.
homes.
That's got to kind of fall under our umbrella of responsibility.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact,
And whether that's getting it ready to sell at its best value, or what do I do to in a rehab or remodel that will enhance that value down the road?
Yeah, definitely. I actually have a bachelor's degree from Michigan State University in interior design. Go Spartans! And it's an incredible accredited program. And design is definitely one of my passions, and that's kind of a roundabout way how I got into real estate. I had this degree and was doing some development back in 5 Points in the day, and with my ex-husband, and I was the person primarily in charge of design. But that kind of leads into just kind of a love of real estate and what goes on in this city and the emerging neighborhoods, and so I love being in real estate because it kind of marries the two of my passions, and so it's it seems like a natural fit to me. So yeah, I'd love to talk to you about what you can do to make your home look its best before pre-market. So
my folks growing up were custom home builders, so I grew up on a construction site. So I think and your experience with
exactly.
the remodeling, I
Yep.
think knowing how a house fits together as opposed to just drywall and slab granite
Exactly.
countertops, it's a benefit.
we're uniquely qualified, Matt.
We are, Dee.
Yes,
There
yes,
you
yes.
go. Yeah, it's a great team. And, that's part of the reason I wanted to have these two on the show, because that energy just comes out in everything they talk about. So, again, let them help you. Give me a call, 720-515-1818, 720-515-1818, or just text me the word value, and we'll get these two to get on with you about what that property is worth, or what things might enhance your experience in deciding to sell or not. We were chatting about, again, that sell process, and we got tangented here on interior design. But gosh, imagine that. What else can you advise if you probably talk to listing people, customers all the time, and they ask you all the same questions. What's that couple of pieces of great advice you can give to somebody if they're thinking maybe it's time, or maybe I need to wait 6 months or whatever it is before they list their house? What's their best tip?
I think knowing your time of year is a really strong suit. I think in the more suburban your home is, those summer months are crucial. People moving in and out of the suburbs they're looking in March, April, and they're pulling the trigger, and they need to be in before the kids are in there. So if you're in an area there, I'm certainly not saying don't attempt it in February or December, but you are absolutely maximizing your potential buyer base with that. In a city circumstance, I think it matters tremendously less. How do you feel about that, Mollie?
I absolutely agree.
Well, and I think with our reduced, we've thrown the term inventory out there, marketplace, there's not really a bad time, horrible time anymore.
Right.
No, not right now. No, there sure isn't. I mean, there's a buyer for every property out there at any given point. It's just maximizing your audience in any particular year.
Yeah,
Right.
and I'll continue my initial starting the show rant, which was rates are not going up or going down,
Right.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
We're in a really nice little low spot right now that I keep telling people now is as good a time as any.
Tom, how do you feel FHA is going to change us after the first of the year? I mean, what do you think our short-term changes are going to be in that? And
there's a 6-hour conversation, but in general,
paraphrasing,
in general, FHA has a little bit of a pass on these new requirements if they choose so.
Okay.
So I don't see necessarily a big change in FHA, but January 1. It'll be more on the conventional side, but. We're all experiencing we're seeing that a lot of foreclosures that are happening in those government-sponsored loans in FHA.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
If you know the numbers on them, if you bought a home 4 or 5 years ago with an FHA loan, and you tack on the 1.75 upfront mortgage insurance, you're already underwater in that home.
Sure.
But I don't see a big, huge change. But that's a great question. We've got to wrap this up. I want to thank Matt Leprino and Mollie Mckennie for coming on
Thank
in
you, Tom.
today.
Thanks.
We've had a great amount of information for you. Again, I want to just encourage you, call us, let them represent you if you're thinking about buying 720-515-1818 or selling 720-515-1818, and we will see you next week.